Hello, Tiffany Arielle here, and we are back with another episode of Spreadsheet Sunday. So today we are going to be talking about budgets. Last time we talked about taxes and how to make sure you're getting all your money out of every paycheck. But what do you do with that extra money, right? So I'm going to be showing you guys my budget spreadsheet and just kind of talking through that. The first tab is just for instructions. I'm not really going to go over this because I'm going to kind of talk through everything as we go. This is just for reference if you do download this. So this is the main tab, the budget tab, because of course this is a budget spreadsheet. So the way that I like to do my budgets is I like to map out different scenarios. So for example, I live in a house, and so it's like I could have one scenario where I live in the house by myself, or I could have another scenario where I live in the house with a roommate. Or let's say I'm planning on moving, then I could map out what is my budget going to look like after I move. And so I like to kind of create different columns for each different scenario. And then in this column is what I just always keep as what my current budget is. So I'm not going to really focus too much on these columns D through F. These are just whatever scenarios you want to map out. I will talk a little bit about the required column, but we'll get to that later. So we're going to focus on column C. So the first thing that we have to do is add up all of our income. So any green rows are going to be income. So of course I have my regular paycheck, and then let's say I have a roommate, I might have income coming in from that. So now let's say I had more income. I could add another row here, and I could label this, I don't know, side job or whatever it may be. And then I would put category income, and then I would put however much I get from that job. I don't have any other income, so I'm just going to delete that. Now, after you've added up all your income, then you have all your expenses. I'm not going to really go through each individual row because this is going to be specific to your scenario. But okay, you have rent, or you have a mortgage, you have food, you have utilities. Maybe you set aside money for travel every month. I do. That way I don't have to worry about, oh, how am I going to pay for this vacation? The money's already there. Whatever expenses you have, right? And so this would be any bills, like if you have student loan payments, all of that kind of stuff would go under this category. If you like to get your nails done, you could have an item for that, right? And then along with that, of course, you have to put the amount for that expense, and you want to categorize those things as either a need or a want. And that will become important later, but I'll skip over that for now. So once you have all of your expenses, then we have this category of savings, right? And so let's say I decide to make extra mortgage payments every month. I count that as savings because I'm still basically paying myself. Even though I'm not putting money in a savings account, I'm still paying future Tiffany. So extra mortgage payments, extra student loan payments, extra beyond what your minimum is every month, I still consider all those things to be savings. Or if you're putting money into a health savings account, or if you're putting money into an actual savings account, or, any investment account or anything of that nature, I create rows for any different savings goal. And so if you have multiple different debts you're trying to pay off, or multiple different things you're saving for, then you might have a row for each one of those. So this part up here is pretty straightforward. It's just kind of you writing down how much you plan to spend and how much money you're making. This one is a little bit more complicated. This is going to be the gross minus taxes. So this will become useful later in terms of calculating certain percentages. You can skip over that if you don't care about that portion, but I would recommend doing that because there's some recommendations in terms of how you should generally allocate your income in terms of needs, wants, and savings, which I'll actually go ahead and come to that now so that you can kind of see. So the recommended amount is to spend no more than 50% of your income on things that you need. And then you're not supposed to spend any more than 30% of your income on things that you want. And then you're supposed to spend at least 20% of your income on savings. Now, of course, this is not feasible for everybody. Some people, you live in an area with really high cost of living, so your needs might be higher than what you would like them to be. Or maybe you feel like you need to get a better job to make more money. Whatever your situation is, it may not be realistic right now, but this is something that you can kind of aim for going forward. Me personally, I try to keep my savings even higher than the 20%. Obviously, higher is always better, but if you're doing at least 20%, then you're probably in pretty good financial shape. So We'll come back to the gross minus taxes. So the reason why I like to use gross minus taxes is because you could look at your net income, but the thing is your net income does not include any money that you set aside for 401k contributions or things of that nature. And that is also savings, right? So we want to factor that in. So what I do is I take my gross pay and then I just subtract whatever taxes I paid. So in this case, we'll say my gross pay was, I don't know, $4,500. These are made up numbers, by the way. This is not my real budget. And then let's say I paid $1,000 in taxes. So you might say, okay, gross pay, and then you might have federal tax, and you might have state tax, and you might have, I don't know, FICA, whatever. So you can just subtract all those things. And then, of course, I get paid twice a month, so I multiply all of that by 2. And then you can see I'm adding C3 because C3 is income that is not my paycheck. So if you were to add more rows here, like let's say I had that other row for a side hustle, then in that case, like that would also still be a paycheck. And so I would just have like 2 of these. So I would have this times 2, and then I would have whatever for my side hustle times 2. Or if I had multiple other income that were not paycheck, then, you kind of figure that out. But basically you want to add up all your income and then subtract any money that went towards any taxes, whatever form that came in. These are just formulas. Like this is your net income. It's just adding up your income from above. You don't need to touch this. These are your total expenses. It's adding up everything in the blue and in this like red color. You don't need to touch this. This is telling us how much money we have left to allocate. So we want to aim, or what I like to do is it's called zero-based budgeting. So basically you allocate every dollar to something. If you have money left over, then okay, that money gets allocated to savings or investments or extra debt payments. So this is 0, which is what we like. And then down here, this is adding up how much of our take-home money did we put towards savings, which was $1,090. But then we said, but we put $1,900 in our 401k. Then we spent another $100 for short-term disability premiums. So we say, okay, the real amount that we spent on debt and savings, when I say debt, I mean extra debt payments, not your minimum payment that you have to make, is actually $2,990. So if we calculate the percentage of our take-home income, we are saving about 18.79%, which you're like, but that's less than 20. That's not great. But when we add in 401k and other things, we actually come up to 41.5%, which is much, much higher than 20%. So we're in pretty good shape here. So then you'll notice I've categorized this as a savings and I've categorized this as a need. If you have something like health insurance premiums, you could add that here as well. You would insert a row above and you would have like health insurance. And of course that would be a need, and that's, however much it costs, right? So you just kind of add however many rows you need. And then down here we have this. Now, of course, this isn't matching up because I've actually overspent. So I'm just going to delete that. But yeah, so we can see that here our needs are 48.8%. That's less than 50. So that's good. We can see that our wants are 17.99%. That's less than 30. So that's good. And our savings are again 41.53%, which is obviously more than 20. So that is good. Although I don't know why my percents are off. I must have done something. This was 100%. Okay, hold on. Let me just undo because it definitely was 100. Okay, that's what I did. I accidentally changed this one. Cool. Okay, ignore all that just happened. Okay, so basically that's it for this spreadsheet. Don't change things you don't mean to change and you won't have these problems. So then we come to the required column. So this is what I use to calculate my emergency fund. So in the event that I were to lose my job, right, it is recommended that you have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. So in the event that I were to lose my job, I would have 0 income. We assume we have 0 income. And then I say, okay, how much would I actually spend? Like, what would my bare minimum budget be? Of course, I still have to pay rent or my mortgage. I still have to buy food. But, maybe I don't eat out as much because I don't have a job. So, it's reduced a little bit. Utilities, we still have to pay. I'm probably not going to be traveling if I don't have a job. Now, if you're in an industry where you may have to travel for interviews, you may still have to factor that in. But I work in tech where companies always pay for you to travel for interviews. So I don't need to worry about that. Obviously, I'm not going to be getting monthly massages if I don't have a job, etc. So basically, you just kind of go through and think like, okay, how would I adjust if I lost my job tomorrow? Of course, we hope that doesn't happen, but it's better to be prepared. Probably not going to be putting money in savings or making extra debt payments while I don't have money. So I set this all to 0. And then what we have is, we can pretty much ignore this. And then this is basically adding up. This is adding up everything that we put up above. And this is multiplying that by 6. So based on what I have here, my emergency fund should be $21,600. Now, of course, this is not my real budget, but you get the picture. So that's kind of how you can figure out like what you should aim for in terms of emergency savings. Now, some people say, oh, do $1,000, do $5,000. That's fine. Like as a starting point, I would say if you don't have $1,000 emergency fund, that's definitely a good place to start. But if you are in a position where you can do more, I would recommend doing something like this to calculate what your actual 6-month goal is and then aim for that. And that will change as your expenses change. Maybe you move to a bigger place. Maybe you have a child. Maybe, different things happen. Maybe you just, I don't know. Anyway, it could be different things. So that is it for this spreadsheet. Now that's all for the actual budget. But I want to show you some other things. So I have this checking account spreadsheet, and this is what I use whenever I'm going to pay my bills so I can figure out what I actually have available to save or invest at the end of the month. I do this at the end of the month. Other people may do it after each paycheck. It just depends on what works for you. But what I would recommend doing is, so over here on the left side, I basically mention any expenses that I have. Me personally, I don't have a whole lot of expenses for my checking account because most of my bills actually go to my credit cards. So my utilities, my phone bill, my car insurance, all that stuff goes to my credit cards. So the only bills that I actually pay pretty much are like my mortgage and my credit cards. But basically you could list whatever you spend out of your checking account every month, you list here, and then you list the amount of how much it will be. Now, if you're doing it by pay periods, you can do it like just for the next 2 weeks until you get paid again, or whatever makes sense for you. And then you have the total amount, which is basically how much money do I need in my bank account right now in order to pay whatever I need to pay before I get paid again. Okay. Then we have this rollover budget balance, which I'll come back to this later. But basically what we're saying here is here I'm going to fill in how much money is in my checking account right now. And then this is telling me how much money I need in order to pay all of my bills. So this is telling me how much I have left. Now, this is all money that I can use for savings, for investments, extra debt payment, whatever I choose to do. So here I would have a buffer. I like to keep an extra few $100s in case I miscalculated something or I just didn't need to take out cash for some reason. And then this is how much money I can actually transfer. Okay, so basically what ends up happening is this is the rollover. So again, I said I'll come back to that later. Then I'll have my savings goal. So let's say I want to put $600 in one savings account and $55 in another savings account. I have $2 left. It's not significant. I'm not going to worry about that. So let me go to the rollover tab. So the rollover tab is for things that you set aside money for in your budget every month, but you don't necessarily spend that money every month. So for example, one thing that I do is I pay my car insurance for 6 months all at once. I do not pay it every month, right? Or my homeowners association, I only pay that once a year. But I do set aside money every month for those expenses. Additionally, things like travel. I set aside money every month for travel, but I don't travel every month. So I want that money to be there whenever I'm ready for it. So what I do is all of my rollover budgets, this is for my house maintenance, this is for travel, this is for, whatever. So any budget, any money that I set aside on a monthly basis, but I don't spend every single month, I create a row here. And then the value is basically how much money is left over in that budget. Now, if you use a tool like Mint, which is what I use, this becomes very easy because in that tool, you have an option to tell it whether you want it to roll over the balance to the next month. And then it'll tell you like how much you are over budget or how much you are under budget. And so then you can just kind of put those numbers here. If you're doing this all by hand, then of course you would have to calculate that yourself, but I'm not going to show you how to do that because I don't do that. Definitely recommend using a tool like Mint. It's mint.com. I'll put it on the screen as well as in the description box. Then you have Sometimes you might have negative. So negative would be that I'm over budget. So I've actually spent more than what I was supposed to spend on whatever category. And so I put all the numbers here, positive, negative, based on what's in my Mint. And this is telling me the total, right? This is $25.83. So now we come back to our checking account page. So this is the same total that we just saw. This, I have to type in how much money is in that account right now. So $2,000. And of course, this is telling me that I need to add in $583. So we see that down here as well. So basically, that's pretty much what this is. So this is basically any money that I want to transfer out of my checking account, either to a savings account for my rollover expenses, or for like an emergency fund account, or maybe I'm saving for a house, or maybe I want to put it in some sort of investment account, or I want to make an extra student loan payment, or whatever it may be. This is what I use to kind of map out where I'm going to actually transfer that money. And then I go in and I actually pay whatever bills and I transfer the money. So I do all of this mapping out every single month before I actually go transferring money. So that is it for this spreadsheet. Same as the last time, I will have the link down below to where you can download it. There will be a Google Sheets version as well as an Excel version. If you use the Google Sheets version, you will have to go to File and make a copy, because when you go to it, it will say View Only. If you have any questions maybe about Mint, obviously I'm not going to show you my Mint account, but if enough people are curious about Mint, I may make like a little fake Mint account just to show you the features. If you're wondering how I actually track my expenses and see if I'm over budget or under budget, or if you have any other questions, spreadsheet ideas, budgeting tips, or anything of that nature, don't forget to comment any of that down below. But in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. 'Cause I'm your lady.